Okay.
Go ahead.
We good?
Yep.
Already? My name is Dwayne Stovall. I am a resident over here at Cleveland in Liberty County. I'm a candidate for United States Senate from the great state of Texas. I am compelled to be in this race because of some very basic, simple philosophies. First and foremost, I just want to be free. I want my children to be free. I want future generations of Texans to be free. It doesn't get much more simple than that. I also have some real clear understanding of basic principles of economics. One is you can't get out of debt by creating more debt. Anybody who's heard me speak will learn real quick that I lump everything in together. Any kind of unconstitutional growth of the government, any kind of largesse, any kind of problems we see with any department, agency, or program, they're all tied by one intrinsic point, and it is money. If you find a way to control money, find a way to control the creation of debt, find a way to stop them from devaluating the dollar, you necessarily regain control of the growth of the federal government and every other agency you're dealing with. I have 3 children, been married 22 years, almost 23. I'm on the school board at Tarkington Independent School District right over here close to y'all. I would like to say I have zero political history, and it really, in the scope of things, it is, but last year I had a knee-jerk reaction to my state representative, and you remember the redistricting problems we had, and they backed up the filing period, so they backed it up, caught me in a bad mood, and I decided I would run against him. So anybody who's been around politics for more than 15 minutes knows if you're going to run a race for only 3 months, you're really not doing too much. But I did. I got in the race, principled decision. My wife would like to have that money back, but I got in the race. I campaigned in San Jacinto County and Walker County, just north of you guys, and took over 40% in both those counties in 12 weeks. So I'm happy about that now. At that time, a loss is a loss, and I don't like losing that much, but it was interesting, and I did learn a lot, even though it was a short period of time. This is a little different situation. About, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I took on the task of self-study, and I started reading the source documents. I got tired of all the sound bites you get on the Constitution. This is constitutional, that's not constitutional. The government can do this to you, it can't do this to you. And I got sick of everybody arguing over what's constitutional and what's not. Well, it doesn't take very long when you go back to the framers and the Philadelphia and the state ratification debates and what the Constitution actually created to figure out that what they gifted us with, which was a republic based in federalism, is not anything close to what we have today. And federalism being the primary principle, anything you read about me, you're going to find that concept or that principle come up a lot, because federalism basically is the 10th Amendment. Federalism was the principle that all the expansive powers resided with the states, and that they were the holders of the power, that they only delegated those few enumerated powers to this new central government, and it was a compact for these states to work together in larger issues. It had no intentions of doing what it is today. So that principle of the republic that we were gifted in federalism has declined to the point today where what we have. We have a nation based in socialism, and all the power is driven by the center, and the states have relinquished all of their power. I think I've had this talk on numerous occasions, hundreds of occasions, and no one can argue the point that the states are more like counties today. They basically are administrative units administering the whims of a few elites in a town far, far away. And if you get the historical context of that, you understand this is not a really good formula. So for me, understanding the basic principles of the Constitution and where we are today was a driver behind me being compelled to get into this race. I'm not overly educated. I'm not a scholar by any stretch. I'm just a regular, average Texan. I have a family. I care deeply about them. I care about the state. I'm a native Texan who has an undying loyalty to the Lone Star State. Starts and ends with just wanting to be free and wanting my fellow Texans to be free as well. I think we've given enough to this Leviathan that's grown over the last 100 years to be the size it is, and it's stolen enough. We need to say no. Thanks for letting me be here, by the way.
Sure.
Okay, with that, we'll start our 45 minutes going around the table, and again, up to 2 minutes on your answers. I like what you just had to say, and I liked everything that you basically said in the questionnaire. Without getting...
That was a short meeting.
Without getting into, however, I'm sure they have some questions, and I do too. Without jumping into your campaign strategy, I can certainly understand you running, in essence, we are a Tea Party.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I can understand you running against Cornyn. But now that one of your opponents is a sitting congressman.
My congressman.
Okay. Is it now in the race? How do you differentiate yourself from him, who is also a known constitutional conservative?
Yeah, if y'all would speak up. It's
Oh,
gonna be a
okay.
problem.
How do you differentiate
How
yourself?
do I differentiate myself from Congressman Stockton?
Stockton, yeah, who's also a known constitutional conservative.
You know, I know Steve. I like Steve. I have no personal issue with him. I do know that he brings a different case to the, or different issues to the table. He has a lot of things that are attracting him that I'd rather not get into here. I mean, they're his issues, but I personally believe that his track record and what he brings to the table, besides the comedic attributes that he's installed into his campaigning and his tenure as congressman for the last year, I think Senator Cornyn is going to just parade him with it. There are issues that surround Steve that are going to be very, very easy targets for someone with money, and I think Senator Cornyn is going to be well versed at that. He's already started. I mean, and there are slowly but surely media bites that are coming out about Steve that are going to hurt him, and ultimately, I think Steve doesn't really damage me in any way. I think it kind of helps. Senator Cornyn is going to put all his effort into Steve because Steve's a quasi-known commodity. If you go out around the state, we know him. If you go out around the state, there's a lot of people that don't know him. But I mean, ultimately,
So you think there's baggage that you don't have, is what you're saying?
well, you know, I get a kick out of the. He was immediately labeled. He had the moniker of the Tea Party guy immediately, and I don't know. You guys, you're in Kevin Brady's.
The press does that.
Yeah.
They do.
Right.
do
Well,
that.
if you know us, because we're with the Tri-County Tea Party, and all of the Tea Parties down on the Gulf Coast, no one has ever endorsed him, ever.
Yeah.
And I'm endorsed by the Pearland Tea Party and the Kaufman Tea Party, and I've got these conservative leaders who are with Tea Parties that can endorse, who have stepped forward. He has no one. He actually had to go north to find somebody in the Tea Party to get involved. So he brings a different issue altogether with him. So it doesn't really bother my campaign at all. I think ultimately it'll wash itself out.
Which way are we going?
Okay. Which one?
Let's go that way.
Okay.
I have to think.
On your questionnaire, you've been in the bridge building business for several years, and then I guess that was with another company. Did you own that company?
Yes, sir.
Diamond K
Right.
and Liberty Testing.
And Liberty Test.
And my question is, how's your company going to continue to run without you being there, number one? And number two, is this going to be a step up or down financially?
Well, it'll create a job. If I get elected, it'll create a job for somebody. I'm going to hire somebody to fulfill my position. But if you would have asked me this last year, I would have said I have no idea how it's going to work. But this year, this position, I've thought about for a very long time. When I say I've researched the Constitution and our founding for the last 7, 8 years, maybe more. The reason I selected this position is because it is the single position that my personal viewpoint is the most misused and abused position in the last century. It's the one that helps strip states of sovereignty and states' rights worse than any other position. I was able to plan for it. So now there is no issue with me being elected. Loss of income, it's all.
So you won't
it's
have
all
two
been thought
jobs.
out.
You want to have two jobs. This will be your day job, you're saying?
No, although this should be a second job, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
full-time job.
Okay.
Constitutionally, you're supposed to only meet once a year. You're supposed to be forced to meet once a year, not be a lifetime job, but that's all those subject.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 51 seconds left. Anybody ready? Follow up?
Yeah, on relative to, did you,
Go ahead.
okay, relative to that, you were still at ARCO when you formed Diamond K Equipment. Was there a conflict of interest? Because a lot of times these corporations have,
No,
positions that say you can't, this has got to be your sole business and you can't really.
no, not
run
with,
anything
not.
else.
I went to work for Atlantic Richfield, the old Arco Spark, and I've been around long enough to be able to gripe about, back in the good days. But it spun off into Lyndale Citgo, if y'all remember Lyndale Citgo, Lyndale Petrochemical, excuse me, LPC Lyndale Petrochemical, and then Lyndale Petrochemical spun off into Lyndale Citgo, and they partnered with Citgo. So it's the old original Sinclair facility down there in Houston. There was no conflict. By the time I had left them, the 9/11 had happened. Everybody kind of had everybody kind of rechecked themselves on where you are and your life, your family, America, what we're doing. It just came to me that I'm the only person that can take care of me, and there's really nobody else out there that's going to do it for me. So I left there right after 9/11 and never looked back.
Okay.
You mentioned studying the Constitution and going back to the original documents and all that. After the Constitution was formed, written, and went out to the states for ratification, there was this debate, Federalist and Federalist.
Right.
So, which of those two groups, if any, would be what would be the states' rights people today?
The anti-federalists.
Okay, that's actually correct.
That's
So-
a misnomer. So if anybody's watching
Right.
the video, Federalists during the ratification debates were for big government. Anti-federalists were for little government. I don't know how they got labeled that way. I'd like somebody to teach me that.
Yeah, I did that. I'll pass on. Go ahead. That's right. That's good.
Follow up?
Let's see, I think, I'm gonna jump into foreign affairs because of what happened recently. I'm a veteran, I have sons still serving in the Army, and every other, I have 5 sons, the others are all veterans like me. So we're all military or ex-military, and right now we know that Fallujah has fallen to Al-Qaeda, and we lost a lot of good guys in taking Fallujah. So we look at Iraq, and a lot of people agree or disagree on President Bush's deciding to do nation building, although that's really what we did in Berlin. That's also what we did in Japan. And so we get a new president in who has shown nothing but weak knees when it comes to international affairs. And so, of course, where we once conquered in these countries, we pull out, don't have any provisions for anything following after. And so the enemy comes right back in and makes everything we did wasteless. It's like Vietnam all over again. We won the war, left, the South Vietnamese were winning, and then the Democrats, and it was only the Democrats, said, we're not going to send them any more money, and so they fell. So my question is, as a Republican senator, are you going to take the stance that basically we should just pull back and just worry about ourselves? Or are we going to continue to be a force in the world for freedom and democracy? What will be your approach on our use of the military and foreign affairs, of when should we act and when should we not?
First, I want to preface, I got a family full of Marine Corps, and I appreciate your family service in a big way.
Thank
It skipped my generation. I was thinking about going to the Marines, and it was 14 years after my father lost his only brother in Vietnam. And let's just say 14 years to everyone who's older in the family was like yesterday. And for me, I didn't know him. I was 40 when he died, so it was for me it was a lifetime ago, but then it was yesterday. But my nephew, who just got out of the Marine Corps last year, is a 32-year-old sergeant. He picked it back up. But that said, there's an SOP, and it is the Constitution. So the idea, and it's funny you bring up George Bush. George Bush got elected on a we're not going to nation build platform. Very much a softer, easier foreign policy, a more engagement, a more trade-oriented policy, and he was the polar opposite of that. I would tend to I would be somewhat disagreeable to you on Obama.
Well, I wasn't
think he was-
stating-
I'm
I'm
getting
saying
around
a
to it.
waste of what we've done, but I'm asking, where do we
I
go
don't
from
know.
here? in your
I don't know
perspective?
how. The Constitution is pretty clear. If it's not initiated on us, or if it's not imminent danger in our behalf,
Uh-huh.
who's going to make the decision to go there? And I'm saying, and I even answered it here. There's no authority under the president for him to arbitrarily or summarily just take our family and friends and go do principles what he thinks are right for freedom or democracy, depending on how
Well,
you
so if
look
he
at it.
comes to you, Congress, a senator, would you support the president in, and I agree,
I'm gonna
national
tell you,
interest, we'll
under
say it is
policy-
national interest, but,
Under policy, he wouldn't bring it to us, he would bring it to the House. And if he brought it to the
Well, that's
House
true.
and the House represented the will of the people and said, yes, you must act on A
Uh-huh.
or X, then I would be inclined to support the people's house. It's just how it's supposed to work. My problem is when you inadvertently go take action and put our family and friends in harm's way over policy of freedom that we're totally unclear on whether it's actually in our best interest or not. So,
okay. What you're saying is justified for national interest purposes or never?
it constitutionally, if it's not in, if it doesn't fall into the three criteria of our
Uh-huh.
interest, we don't have a constitutional right to go do that.
Okay.
So,
Right.
Kind of following from there, I mean, part of what our national deficit is due to military involvement. It's also, of course, many other things. You stated in your questionnaire that you would not raise the debt ceiling.
no.
So how does that work then? I mean, how do we eliminate programs? What's your strategy for working through Congress to
So you're
not
asking me
default on the debt?
If I'm in charge and I get to do it,
Well, no, I mean, you're
Well-
saying you won't raise the debt ceiling. That's going to be your vote. So what's your strategy for avoiding default by not raising the debt ceiling?
well, first, you'd never default. If you've added up all the debt servicing numbers we have, all of the Social Security, all of the Department of Human Services, all of the military, without cutting the military 1 ounce, if you left it just like it was, which I think it's overly blown up all over the
Sure.
empire, but if you left it just like it was and you included Social Security and all the welfare and entitlement programs, it still only works out to be about $2.7 trillion.
That's more
We
we're
took-
taking in.
No, it's not. We
Yes,
took
it
in,
is.
we took in about 2.9. We're spending about 3.6 or 7.
Yeah, he's correct.
So the issue for me is not the core aspect of whether grandma in Florida gets her check or not. I think she's protected. I think it's the largesse. People get confused, and the rhetoric that comes out of D.C. just blows me away. That it's the idea that if we don't raise the debt ceiling, they're going to not pay the military, they're going to not send out Social Security checks. It's always the fear factor. The truth of it is that there's 2.5 million people employed by the federal government. That doesn't include the military. There's only 1.5 million people, give or take, in the military. And we all basically agree to have them, and that's constitutionally okay.
But you're making wild assumptions that we're going to maintain a revenue, the 1 year surge from last year from everyone's cashing out in the stock market, and that Medicare costs aren't going to skyrocket, which all projections show that they are. So we still end up with a problem within the next couple of years.
Well, I think the backside of that argument is that can we afford what we do now?
Well, no, we promised too much in entitlements alone.
Right. So what I think structurally, what you and I are talking about is if you take something as bit large as Social Security,
Mhm.
there's going to be, and I had this discussion the other day with a large group of very, very, very smart policy people who were grilling me, and I said, look, we know there's going to be pain. This is not going to correct itself freely. We're not going to all walk away from this in an easy, oh, well, that was yesterday, we'll start new tomorrow. It's going to be painful for everybody. You take an issue like Social Security. I have looked at so many different options that people have brought up over the last 10 or 15 years about phasing it out. And the idea that, to me, you're going to have a discussion, or we all are going to have a discussion with the younger generations and say, look, here's the deal. This is where we're at. we want to create a cutoff date. I'm just pie in the sky. We want to create a cutoff date, and we want people from this age up who have vested in it, who we have said we're going to pay, we want them to collect. There's going to be a generation, at least, maybe two, who are paying in now, which we already pay in now, that are going to continue to pay in, but they're going to opt out. So that your children are not in this program, and the government's not dragging on their payroll and taking from them before they ever see it for a fund that is not going to pay out what it says it's going to pay out anyway. So I think there's some very serious discussions that are going to have to take place, but we're not having those, not even close to having those. So we can sit here because we're all thinking in terms of real basic mathematics and money. They don't think in those terms. They think that they can actually continue the devaluation of the dollar and continue spending $85 billion a month through a corporation that is questionable constitutionally as well, and keep this false front going, and you can't do that. I think historical cycles have proven that. We're going to have a correction. I just want to have that discussion about how we can have a part in that correction, or do we just continue raising the debt and devaluing the dollar and creating an inflationary period that falls down around our heads or our kids' heads and creates a huge disaster.
All right, Dennis?
Yeah, kind of roll back a little bit to Stockton. You enjoy pretty good support around this area, but most Tea Parties kind of view Stockton as also a pretty conservative guy. So I guess the question is, how does the two of y'all, and maybe some others, affect Corning? Our goal is to get rid of Corning. So a couple parts of this. There's a chance that you and Stockton to get together and have arm wrestling, Stockton, and arm wrestle, or somehow work it out. And does the fact that the two of you are running give the election to Corning?
No.
Or does it?
No, statistically and by the polls, when I say Steve's campaign doesn't really affect me, it really does. And the person who's least affected is Corning. Because I think everybody at this table knows if they're a supporter of Corning, they're not leaving.
And they're not here.
They're not leaving. They're not leaving him.
Yeah.
We're not trying to sway hardcore Cornyn supporters who don't care about his voting record and don't care anything about deficit spending. They're in his camp. What we're doing, it's a totally different race. If you look at the polls of Cornyn, and if you look at the way I look at it, there's going to be a runoff. The latest polls out of the University of Texas showed that there was only a 40-some-odd% approval rating of Cornyn statewide with only Republican voters. But the support was only 32 or 3%. You've been in office for 12 years federally, and your lifespan is like 20-some-odd years in public office, and you only have 33%, 32, 33% support. That's a huge negative. That tells me you're headed for a runoff. Those people that don't support him, the independents and the true constitutional or the true conservative Tea Party groups, the grassroots, they're the ones that are going to be the drivers of this campaign. And they're either going to pick anybody but Cornyn, and in that race, someone is going to be in a runoff with him more than likely. Not guaranteed. I think it's possible somebody could win the primary.
Well, the other thing you have is you have groups that are worried about the next cycle of law coming through. They've got their own little lobby, special interest, and their constituents would be conservative, but they tend to go with the incumbent because they're afraid of currying favor. So we've got to pull those guys out of that mix and not go with Cornyn. So we've got to create, you or Steve or somebody that's got the momentum, so that people can believe it can happen, because we're fighting upstream.
I don't think there's I understand the emotional portion of it, but there's only a core group of people who are going to vote for Cornyn. I think if we're worried about Texans making the right decision, whether or not they send him back, we have bigger problems.
So you're saying the not Cornyn votes is strong enough
I
to
think we're
require
substantial.
at least
We're
a
just
runoff,
arguing
right?
over who's going to be the one that's going to be heads up with him.
Okay.
What about the people that just give up and say, "Well, I can't"? I think they've got to believe in one of you other.
For turn
Two, they're just like, I don't know, I won't vote for John, but I don't really know. I don't, and so I can just give up.
Stay home.
that happens. I wish there was something I could offer you that I do know. Let's just say that this is going to change drastically. It'll vacillate. It's going to be very fluid between now and just for anybody watching. We've got what now? 59 days.
Yeah.
It's going to get pretty lively before that is up.
So if Steve survives the primary, would you campaign for him and you think he would for you?
If Steve won the primary, I mean, if Steve
Well,
came out in a runoff,
Runoff,
oh,
yeah.
certainly.
You think he would support you?
Oh, I think he would be.
Have y'all met before?
Yeah.
I've seen him. I guess we probably met him once.
We met him down at
There were
Clear
tea
Lake,
parties
yeah.
that were very upset because he and I had, I don't know if y'all read any of that. There was a National Review came out with a story about it. He and I had breakfast a couple of weeks before the filing period ended. And there are people who take offense to this, and I understand it completely, but politics is not necessarily a principled situation. We had breakfast. He said people are leaning on him, and I said, who's leaning on him? He said, they.
Yeah.
We all know who they is. You know, they, the man. Find them. If you find them, I'm going to beat him up. And, they're leaning on him. Well, what do you mean? Well, they're talking to him about running. And I said, oh, really? I said, you're going to run? And he said, well, I'm not inclined to. I said, okay. We had breakfast. I said, look, if you decide, just keep me in the loop. But what people don't understand is he's my congressman, and a lot of people got upset with this. There's more going on because now I'm politically active, and I pay attention now, not like I did 15 years ago. If he were to wait till the last minute like he did, it would affect all the state representatives in our area who are really conservative, who we may want to have gotten into the fray for his position.
Right.
Because we were the new district. CD 36 was the new creation last year. So we've got some really quality people around there. Well, the rules are such that if you have filed and you're an incumbent, you can't, after 24 hours, you can't remove yourself after the deadline. So they may extend it for 7 days, like they did. But if you didn't get wind of it or hadn't talked to your wife or you hadn't planned on really discussing what you're doing, by 7 o'clock the following night, Wednesday night, if you hadn't dropped the hammer and done it, you're out. So it was going to be a bit of a cluster for our county or our district. But he said, I'm not inclined to do so. I went home and told my wife that he said he's not inclined to do it. She said, what are you thinking? And if a politician tells you he's not inclined to tax you, what do? You grab your wallet. Grab your wallet, it's coming. So there were people who took offense to that. But really got him was I texted him during the week. We had talked again on the phone before he left for D.C. I texted him during the week prior to the filing closing, and I said, "What's the word?" And he texted me back and said, "I refiled for the House today." And I laugh about it because he said they're still leaning on him, and I said, "Well, that's okay when you endorse me." Because I asked him, I said, "So if you don't run, you're going to endorse me?" So yeah, I'll endorse you. I said, "That's all right when you endorse me." I said, "After you endorse me, we'll start you as a support group." But anyway, y'all know what happened. He waited till the last minute and jumped in the race. For me, it's neither here nor there. I know why I'm doing this. I'm crystal clear on why I'm doing this. I have absolutely nothing to lose, and we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Okay, the borders and immigration. Where do you stand on what we're going to do?
Amnesty is a non-starter.
What is non-starter?
It means you can't even talk about immigration of any way, shape, or form when you're talking about amnesty. It's a non-starter. You shouldn't even be in the discourse. The border itself, I am totally confused as a citizen of Texas with the issues that go on in the border states. Criminal activity and between drug activity and cartels and what do they call them, OTMs, who are originating from any other country outside of this continent, we have a security issue. I don't understand how it is we've gone so many years allowing it to be so porous and to pretend that we're securing our own border. I don't get that. I don't understand how we're spending billions of dollars in foreign countries securing borders when we're not securing our own border. So for me, it's gone way beyond, I don't know, I'm probably one of the younger ones at the table, maybe. Y'all understand in the 70s and early 80s, the illegal alien aspect was not an issue publicly because they didn't get taxpayer-funded programs of any kind. They didn't get public education. There was none of that. So over the last 20 years of my life, 25, 30 years of my life, it has digressed to the point now where they're a part of our economy in a way that was never intended. We're paying for programs that was never intended. And at the same time, we've got people who are pushing to create some kind of expedited pathway to legalization of their citizenship. You can't do that. For me, it's a different issue. For me, it's gone beyond economy. For me, it's you can't let a body of people who have never been educated, and now you're going to look at this, I'm going to say this, and you're going to laugh about our own kids, because our own kids are dealing with the problem here. But they're dealing with a group of people who have not been educated in what a republic is, how a Republican form of government works, what federalism is, what limited government is, what republicanism is, what liberty is, what it takes to protect that. And if you allow people to vote who have not been educated in those principles, you get exactly what they came from, whether it be an oppressive dictatorial situation or not, or socialism, you're going to get what they came with. I worry more about the loss of the traditional value of Texas and the republic in a bigger scope of things than I do the economic impact. The border itself, for me, the federal government has got to be held to task. Article 4, Section 4 says it will protect us from invasion. We are being invaded, whether people like it or not. We don't get half the information that comes from the border on criminal activity that's going on in the states, and then they go back over. This is terrible. I mean, it's dangerous. And I think it's just getting worse by the year. And I don't know what the driver is that keeps us from securing our own border. When you have 1.5 million people in the military who would be more than happy to come home and work on our own border.
Sure.
So,
Okay. I want to follow on James's national security question. In fear number 6, what should the U.S. strategy be in dealing with unrest in the Middle East? And you said follow the Constitution as you talked about earlier, and I think you kind of took it to the point where go or no go. I also obviously have a military family, father-in-law, son now. The Benghazi situation, you said that we should only really get involved pursuant to declaration of war, specific statutory authorization, or national emergency created
Right.
by attack on the USA, its territory, possessions, or
Yes,
some
armed
forces.
forces, yes.
What about ambassadors? And if they're not necessarily in their compound?
oh no, they're members. They're members. You're ambassadors. You're on sovereign territory with another country. Yeah, yeah. You have issues. You can't let them attack your.
And you send the troops in?
Oh, I think that's an immediate response.
It's kind of a, or do you go to Congress?
Well, no.
You're Senate Armed Services Committee, and you get the call at 3 o'clock. Should we have your
Oh,
permission
if
to go or no
you
go?
passed one of the criteria right there. If it's imminent threat and you think it's going to happen, and you're taking that before the House and the president is bringing that case and making that case, you have time for that. If you have activity going on right now, a Benghazi situation, they better be active.
Okay. On number 20, what actions should America take in regards to Iran's nuclear capabilities? You said stay in contact with them, stay in contact with their allies, vigilant. Okay, I understand all that. What would you do when they get to the point of North Korea? And they've got the nukes and they're ready to go. What do you do?
Do we wait for
Or
them to
do
hit
we wait for
Jerusalem or
them to
what?
get there, or do we?
Well,
do
see,
we address
that's
it
another,
before then?
that's a split issue too, whether they've got it or whether they don't. Israel's a different issue too. But they follow the same guidelines. I mean-
Israel's a little bit more proactive.
For themselves.
Yeah, it's zero tolerance for them, and it could be zero tolerance for us.
I think it would be zero tolerance for them, and I think they'd handle it the way they want to handle it. For us,
Why
I'm
should
not
we
sure.
follow their-
Well, they'd ask for our help. You're saying we should deny it?
No, this is the issue. As a Christian, I support Israel. Constitutionally, there's a pathway. If Israel says, just like any other ally of the United States, I've never understood this either, and we allow it. We give sanction to these presidents just run around the globe doing whatever they feel like.
Sure.
If an ally says, we'd like your assistance, or we're going to plan something, we'd like your help, why is it they don't go to Congress and say, we've been asked to assist, and ask the people's house whether or not they can be authorized to do so?
Well, for Israel, there's already an agreement that Congress approved. Not like a treaty, but it's a defense agreement that you're referring to. That's already been approved.
See, there's statutes there that are built into this. When you're talking about Iran specifically,
Yeah.
I mean, where do you draw the line on this thing? How many countries are we going to
Well, do you
manage?
believe, do we believe what Iran says, which is like what the Nazis said, people didn't believe them until it's too late. Iran
And
is
we
saying the
just got
same
into
stuff.
We just got into an agreement with Iran, Kerry did, that is
Yeah.
similar to what.
Yeah, and didn't
Britain did
bring
with
up
the
a
Nazis.
That's right.
and didn't bring up a single held prisoner
Amazing.
in the negotiations.
Yeah, you're right.
Not a single
Or
one.
anything else?
We've gone 30 minutes into the questions and answers.
All right, good, well, thank you.
You have 3 children. Are they still in your household?
I have a daughter. I'll preface this, do not hold this against me. No, she's a sweetheart. I have a daughter that's going to graduate in May from the University of Alabama. We had no family in Alabama. She just decided she wanted to go there, and she went.
I'll hold that against you.
I have a-
Later off the record.
Well,
Don't
hey,
tell us you.
I've got a son. Don't hold this against me either, depending on which side of the table you're on. But I have a son who is a freshman. Well, no, I think he's a sophomore. He left high school with a lot of college credit, but he's at the University of Texas. And I have a third one who is in first grade. He's 11 years behind his brother. No,
Wow.
yeah, he's 11 years behind his brother. They begged for a sibling, and we got a mascot.
That's great.
I think he's an anarchist, by the way.
They usually are at that age.
All voters here and really appreciate and like to hear how and it's very refreshing to hear someone that's running for office tell us different things that we've never heard from the others and be constitutional and all that. And you're very much, obviously, a believer in the constitutional government. My question is, when you get to be senator, how are you going to survive continually believing in the constitutional government?
You make it sound like I'm going to get killed.
Well, you might not get any committee appointments or chairmanships and
Sorry.
that kind of stuff.
You-
How long?
If you want it, you got to expect what's going to come with it, because it doesn't change.
Well, there are more committees and subcommittees than there are senators.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah,
everybody gets something.
something.
So how long is it going to take you, before you're going to succumb to the pressures of, well, I really do need to get on that committee. I think I can do more on this committee.
I hate that. I hate that with my state representatives. I hate that with that, well, let's just coalesce because, I can do more for you if they're not mad at me. Sorry. The U.S. Senator's role is an ambassador to the federal government from their state. They're not up there to coalesce with the other senators. They're not up there to bring largesse. They're not up there to do anything other than look after the best interests of the state of Texas. End of story. And everybody else there should be looking after the best interests of their own states. There's no reason to be afraid to go there and stand on principle and say, we're not going to grow this thing anymore. You're hurting my state. End of story. So I don't see it that way. Of course, I'm so green and so not politically connected. I'm not groomed for politics that I don't have any of the other baggage that comes with it. There's no alliances. There's nobody that's sending me to Washington and going, oh boy, you know, we've got a voice in Washington that's going to represent my business or my voice. No, in very simple construct, you should be representing your people's house, the state legislature of Texas. It's a different dynamic. We've gotten so far away from it that I can go talk to Tea Parties today and I can ask them, well, if there's a problem in the Senate, who do you call? And they'll say, oh, your senator. And I go, oh, really? There's 26 million of us. Who's going to get through to them? It's not really the concept. So
Along that line, I know I'm over time,
quick.
but our question number 5, please list at least 3 federal agencies that most clearly fall outside the scope of the United States Constitution.
That's why y'all want to shrink the block, right?
Yes, yes.
I counted,
Actually, pretty.
I counted approximately 53 that you have listed, but I'm guessing that you ran out of paper.
I only put the government, the intergovernment agencies.
You may note that
programs.
this is
Yeah.
independent. This does not include any independent agencies of the
Right.
United States government.
NGOs.
Yeah, okay. I want to clarify.
Put you on
How
YouTube.
much time do we have left before we jump to ball?
We've got time for about 2, as long as you don't let him ask the question, we'll have time for 2 more.
Maybe I'll time his question this time.
We'll have 2 more.
Go for it.
So I can tell that you want to follow the Constitution and have a good grasp of the original concept of the country. You know, we Texans, we're trying, John Cornyn is the opposite of what Texas needs. So what we've got to do is how do we get you or Stockton, so we've got to decide, okay, which one of the good ones are we going to recommend? And then, what's the, how do we actually accomplish getting that person elected? So, convince me that you are better than Steve Stockman, and convince me that you can win.
What you're voting on and what I advocate everywhere I go is not, please don't vote on the winner. Vote principles. Try and get as much information you can on context of character. That's the basis of what the republicanism is. The 3 principles of the Constitution, republicanism was one of the important ones as well, is you're going to be elected, represented by those you elect. And generally speaking, you want people as close to you as you can get so you get context of who they are. I come to this compelled to do so. No one leaned on me. No one said, you need to go do this. I don't come to the table with any baggage that says that I have ulterior motives for getting this position. Anybody who wants this position because they look at the power of the position, I don't see it as that powerful myself, but I understand the Constitution. A lot of people don't. They think you're elected to this position and all of a sudden you're a rock star or something. You're a representative. You're a senator. You represent your state. I'm compelled to do this because of the damage that has been done over the last 100 years of this country. I'm compelled to do this because I sense with every bone in my body that we're going to have a correction that's never been seen in history. I think that when we continue this debt bubble to the direction that we're going, there's quite literally not enough currency in circulation on the planet to pay off the unfunded liabilities we have in this country alone. When this corrects itself, our children, our grandchildren are going to pay dearly. I worry about that. That compels me to do this. I don't know of anybody else who is compelled a year ago to make this decision. And I didn't make this decision easily. I came to this over months of fitful self-appraisal and prayer, and it was laid on me. So all I can say is assess everybody else and just understand that principally, if there was someone else in this race who had Jeffersonian principles, who was in the race for the right reasons, I wouldn't be in it.
So when you announced you were going to run, when was that in relation to all the recent flack that Cornyn got? With battle we went with Cornyn.
You know what? I think Patricia could tell you. I started running a petition probably in I think y'all talked to me probably in March or April. The petition was moving extremely fast, but not fast enough for a lot of people. So there were people who came forward and said, "We'll pay your fee. Forget that thing. We'll do this." That's where that went. It ended up being people just supported me and paid the fee, and that's where it went. They didn't like the idea of you showing up as a petition candidate. They wanted you to be a formal candidate. So I formally announced on the Mike Church show on Sirius Satellite on, I don't remember when that was, July or August. But I had been actively, I don't know how many tea parties I've probably talked to 10,000 people in the last 10 or 11 months. And that's been since February, give or take. And the formal announcement was kind of a blip in the air because I had been at it so long and I talked to so many people. I've been scheduling meetings with people for so long. I was running. What am I missing?
So you've been running a year.
We got room for-
Sure. We talked about increasing the deficit. A lot of people, I don't think, realize if we just did not increase the deficit and only use what came in, that the federal budget would actually, spending would still be higher than it was when Obama took office. But my real question is about the Federal Reserve. If we don't use the Federal Reserve, now we know that they're feeding this deficit spending.
Sure.
They buy more of the debt than China or any other, the world combined. We don't have the Federal Reserve. What do we do about a stable dollar, which of course they're not doing that either, but that is supposed to be their role, and unemployment issues, what do we replace it with?
Unemployment issues, as far as.
Well, let's
How many
say the
questions you wanna
dollar,
ask,
let's stick
James?
with the dollar. The other is just confusing.
The monetary policy is atrocious here, and we all know that. And the idea that, and in the question and answers you saw there, that the Constitution allowed the Congress to coin money based in
Sure.
gold and silver.
Which is
and-
the Treasury Department, so we have.
That's
that.
right. So the basis of a backed hard currency dollar,
Mhm.
a founded dollar, has been slowly, destructively taken apart, and we've been systematically brought into this fiat currency with
Right.
no backing. Everybody understands enhanced by the final blow was Nixon.
Yeah.
How do we get back to a stable, hard currency that's backed by something, a fixed asset?
Well, so you're saying we need to go back to a backed currency to have
We're
a stable
gonna
dollar?
have to. We're gonna have to back it in something, because otherwise, historically, that's how empires blow up themselves, is they get the ability to print phony currency, and once they can get into fiat currency, they have the ability to buy at will, and it's also the ability to destroy and steal at will. That's what it is. I mean,
Sure.
if you retire with $500,000, but they devalue your dollar by 50% over the next 5 or 10 years, all of a sudden you're figuring out, I don't have enough money to live on.
So back it with some commodity?
I don't know
whether
how-
Gold, silver, oil, or some resource? Or a mix of resources?
I think the discussion better start pretty quick.
And
on
what's
what we're gonna
the
do with it.
difference between printing money, paper, and gold, and silver, which does and has fluctuated?
Well,
Still gotta tie it to a standard that's gonna fluctuate anyway, just like,
Well, it only
Yeah, historically-
fluctuates now because it's not backed.
yeah.
If it is, then it means the dollar will fluctuate overseas, but not here.
The issue with using a
Oil would still fluctuate.
using a petroleum-based dollar is just
We have
as
more
dangerous.
than anybody else.
Yeah, that's just as dangerous to me as gold. The reason gold is been used for 6,000 years as a good commodity from currency is that it's more or less a fixated.
It's finite.
Yeah.
Largely, yeah.
Yeah, so it holds level. I worry more about, and I didn't say this earlier, I've traded construction equipment globally on a small scale since about '98. I've got business associates from all over the planet, Syria, Egypt, all over in the area that we worry about the most.
Sure.
They make absolute assertions that there's no way we're going to maintain the global, what's the word?
Production or resources?
No, the dollar. We're the
Reserve currency.
Reserve currency.
Yeah.
We're not going to maintain a reserve currency forever. And I used to laugh at that and go, oh, we're America. Well, the fact is, we've only been a reserve currency since what, 47?
Yeah.
It's
World War II.
relatively young, and we actually had the, what was it, Bretton Woods Agreement, and that was actually based in gold.
Oh,
The basis of that agreement was to be backed in gold, and we basically destroyed that agreement in the early 70s. So we're kind of floating out there. Well, the devaluation of the dollar is having just as much of an effect negatively on the other economies as
Yeah.
anything. So there's going to come a day where they're going to say, whether it's IMF or the United Nations or the World Bank, which are all the same thing, by the way, they're going to wake up one day and say, you know, we're just tired of this. We're going to use this global dollar, and the U.S. currency is not going to be good anymore. When that happens, boy, that's a nightmare no one wants to live through. 24 hours, you wouldn't be able to pay for squat overseas.
Okay. 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes to do your closing, and then after that, we're gonna turn off the camera and talk a little bit more on your campaign strategy.
Okay. I can tell, speaking of campaign strategy, I'll tell you a little bit. I have a really, really good campaign structure. When I say I'm just an average Texan, I feel like I have built something that I'm very, very proud of. I say I have built, there's a lot of people involved in this. I have a great campaign manager. We've got almost 1,000 volunteers. I've got, I think, right at 20 regional coordinators in the state of Texas. If you go to my website, which is Texans for Stovall, you can hit the get involved, and it'll take you to puttingtexasfirst.com, which is our volunteer portal. You can go join the team, create a profile, get involved, and it automatically, that's the people that are your regional coordinators, get, find out who you are. And you don't have to go into it thinking, oh God, I'm going to have a job. You can go into it and you can nominate how much time, what your assets are, what your talents are, and it gives us a pool of people that we can call on if we need help with something, or if you're really motivated, want to get out there every day, you can say that too. It's a really great concept. We started last weekend and you may have seen, some of you may have seen, I've always been mad because everybody looks for endorsements. And I told you, I'm the guy getting endorsements from tea parties. So you wonder why I need to be picked over somebody else? There's a very clear indicator. I've always been upset because it's either a celebrity or a big organization with a lot of money who comes out and said they endorse X.
sure.
And everybody goes, oh, well, that's important. You and I can walk into our store locally and say, you know, that guy's a really good guy, and I'm voting for him. That's an endorsement, and that means something, and people get away from that. So what we started was a website called All for Stovall, and it's a personal endorsement website. So people can go there, and there's